Alright, so let's be real. Living forever sounds like a total nightmare. I don't care what sort of fantasy some other badass, immortal characters put in your head. For me, immortality never attracted me. Because immortality isn't just about never dying. It's about the weight of eternity and being left with nothing but time. Because that's exactly where Frieren starts. She's this immortal elf who's been alive for centuries, but instead of feeling powerful or wise, she just feels detached and lonely. For Frieren, time is meaningless. Decades pass like days, and the people she meets, gone. They're just fleeting moments in an endless existence. When her journey with Himmel, and Eisen ends, it doesn't feel like a big deal to her, at least not yet. But when Himmel dies, that's when everything shifts. For the first time, Frieren is confronted with the weight of eternity, and that's where her story really begins. Alright, so let's talk about Himmel for a second. Himmel is your classic hero. He saved the world, he helped people, he was kind of a narcissistic dork, honestly, but in the best of ways. But what makes Himmel so interesting to me isn't his heroics, it's his POV on life. He respects the finality of life while harboring grander wishes of extending his reach far beyond his death. He's hopelessly romantic, not just in his feelings for Frieren, but in his idealization of life itself. Himmel's desire to leave a lasting mark on the world exemplifies his views of immortality, because it's not just about physical longevity, but about living on in the memories and stories of others. Ironically though, despite his grand dreams of heroism, Himmel's actual death is quiet and somewhat mundane. Actually, his whole life after that decade of heroism seems like it's just mundane as hell. He grows and dies as an old frail man, physically weakened, while his companions retain much of their strength and youthfulness. He is not the figure of eternal heroism one might expect. And here's the thing, Himmel knew his time was limited, but instead of fearing death, he focused on leaving something behind. He left pieces of himself everywhere, in Frieren, in Heiter, in the people he saved, in the statues he put of himself. So when Himmel dies, he's not really remembered for his strength or his victories like I think he actually would think people would remember him as. He's remembered for the way he made people feel. Himmel kind of teaches us that immortality doesn't have to mean living forever. It's about living on in the memories of others. It's about the bonds you create and the impact you leave behind. And I think that's what Frieren tries to say is the cure for loneliness when you are an immortal, which is connection. There's a notion that Himmel and Heiter proposed forward and that Frieren picked up on after Himmel's death, which is to leave a plethora of meaningful and genuine impact on the world, enough so that you won't be lonely no matter the decades or the centuries that pass. Frieren really didn't do all that for the centuries or millennia she was alive, but her decade-long journey with Himmel, Heiter, and Eisen, despite it being such a short time for her, left a deep but subconscious impact on her. She didn't value it that much, as how she stated it was a mere 10 years, but in her heart, she genuinely did value it. It's just besides Flam, she probably never stayed that long with a group of people, so she really didn't process it. It's at Himmel's funeral that she realizes just how impactful her 10-year journey with Himmel was. She feels like she wasted time not cherishing those memories while he was still alive, so she sets out to genuinely bond with people and get to know them instead of continuing her repression. The repressed loneliness hidden behind her aloofness and detachment is what makes decades disappear in the blink of an eye for her, which is what brought out her subconscious loneliness when Himmel passed. When time becomes an empty space, of course the passage of time will be fast for you, rendering life so meaningless and soulless. So the cure to loneliness that comes with immortality is to genuinely bond with people all around, to have a multitude of ever-evolving experience so that when one person you cherish passes, as self-serving as it sounds, you have others to cherish so you won't be as lonely. A finite life already demands a life filled with experience and bonds, so an immortal life demands that tenfold. Life without people is ultimately meaningless. We give it meaning by being together. It is the memories of simple moments together that we recall at some point later down in our lives when we are all together and we're having a yo, remember when whatever type of conversation. So immortality, which we have always found daunting and scary, can be not so scary if we simply continue to create new bonds. We as humans live on to 78 to 80 years old now. If we were to imagine ourselves as immortals, that means from a century from now, chances are everyone we know is dead. And for some reason, we don't really want to imagine creating new bonds after our current loved ones is gone. And I think it's because of a part of us feels like we might be devaluing our current friendships and bonds with people if we simply choose to move on to new people after everyone is gone. But I don't think that's the point. The point is to, yes, have new bonds, but also to cherish the bonds of the past, so that in a way, it's not only you that's immortal, it's also the people of the past that still live on within you, that you have experienced so and so with. And I think that's what Himmel is doing. He immortalizes himself as the immortal past so that Frieren doesn't get lonely as she hopefully continues to move forward with her life. This act of closing a chapter on an era of our lives, it's not an immortal thing. It doesn't only happen to those who are immortals and are forced to live through the passings of the ones they love. We do that as finite beings. We part ways with people we at some point called our best friends, and we could have never imagined being separated from. Death strikes our parents or our children, or the very life we live, it gets robbed away from us. And naturally, we have to move on. Otherwise, we risk detaching ourselves from reality and drowning in this feeling of dread and loneliness. So the act of engaging with those around you so that you don't deal with eventual loneliness, while again self-serving as it sounds, is brutally human. It is built within us to dread the unknown and the loneliness that might come from that unknown. Frieren will eventually have to cope with the passing of Frieren Stark. I'm not too sure if they showed Frieren thinking about it in the manga since I haven't read it yet, but I bet she already has. Little teenagers who will become weak and old and pass on before her despite her being older than them, just like with Flam, Haiter, and Himmel. But in this turn, I think she will be able to cope with it much better because just like she will continue to carry on their memories in her immortal heart, essentially immortalizing them alongside her, Frieren Stark will definitely have a lasting impact and legacy upon the world as it's already being foreshadowed. Not only as one of, if not the strongest warrior and mage of all time, but also with their genuine connection and bonds they will probably have built over their lives with the random people that they will meet. And this will serve as a constant reminder for Frieren, making her feel like they're not really gone yet. So immortality in this show is shown from the perspective of the mortal that passes on and the immortal who has to witness their passing. In the definition of true immortality for the mortals, it's about being remembered endlessly after you pass, and for the immortal, it's about continuing to immortalize yourself with connections and bonds, even if you will outlive said bonds.